Back in it, man.
Back in it. Do a little baseball today.
Yeah.
Kind of excited.
This guy played all over. I'll say that.
A lot of teams
Yeah.
for this guy. He, a lot of free agent contracts and trades, but possibly could have been a Hall of Famer. If you think about it. Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Dom DiTolla, sitting alongside my co-host, Chris Quinn, and today we're going to get a little MLB action.
Yeah, we're back on the diamond. We're talking Gary Sheffield.
Gary Sheffield, one of the most dominant players of the 90s and early 2000s.
An absolutely wonderful hitter, and we're going to get into it to think maybe his career was overshadowed by some steroids.
Overshadowed by some steroids, but overshadowed because he was a guy who knew how to get on base.
Yep.
This guy was one of the elite players in Major League Baseball throughout most of his 20-plus year career.
Yeah, he has some of my favorite stats with not striking out and just
dude.
like putting the ball in play.
So many power hitters, these days have just unbelievable strikeout numbers. This dude had unbelievable walk numbers.
Yep.
And, well, we'll get into it later as far as his Hall of Fame candidacy. But, no, he was one of the most fun players to watch ever.
Yep.
But Gary Sheffield, Gary Antonian Sheffield, born November 18th, 1968 in Tampa. Grew up in Belmont Heights in the Ponce de Leon projects. And he lived with an uncle who was quite the famous baseball player, someone we've talked about on previous episodes of these podcasts. Yeah.
Dwight Gooden.
Dwight Gooden, that's right.
And he was
the 86 Mets.
And he was what, like 4 or 5 years older?
Yeah, he was about 4 or 5 years older. Mm-hmm.
And I saw something that said that when he was developing, essentially, Dwight taught him how to hit a fastball, and he held on to that forever because he had not major league speed probably at that time, but he was a great pitcher. And he got to bat against him when he was like 13.
Yeah, what better way to learn than Dwight Gooden fastball pre-cocaine?
Yes, exactly. All control.
But developed into a great hitter, although early on he developed quite the temper tantrum and issues with his attitude.
And this kind of is something that goes with his career. He was very outspoken. When he feels like he's being wronged, he's not going to be quiet. And something that might be a bit of a mark against him is that he doesn't keep stuff in the clubhouse.
No, he doesn't keep stuff in the clubhouse. He just kind of shares it with everybody. I mean, back in Little League, he threw a bat at his coach.
Yep.
But he was still a successful Little League player. He was on the Belmont All-Stars. Future Major League All-Star Derek Bell was on that team.
Oh, yeah.
Ty Griffin, a Cubs #1 pick. And they made it all the way to the Little League World Series Finals in 1980, but lost to the Taiwanese 4-3.
Yep.
But he actually set a doubles record in Little League World Series history that stood until 2012. So, I mean, you could see that this guy had some ability.
Yes, definitely. And he shows this in high school, especially when he starts to develop more physically. I read that.
Yeah, because he's kind of a rail-thin kid.
Yep.
Like, burlap sack filled with wet antlers, pretty much,
nice.
leading into high school. But freshman year makes the varsity baseball team at Hillsborough High. And then by his junior season, he bulks up to 175 pounds. I'm about 170 pounds right now, and I wouldn't consider that bulking up. But,
well, that's what I read was he was so rail thin early on that he really didn't have any power behind him. And once he put on this muscle in his junior year, it was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how that happens as far as, but when you watch him and his iconic batting stance later, where he kind of has that wide stance and then he shakes his wrist, like his wrist strength and just strength in his forearm. I mean, granted, his lower half was strong to begin with, but just you can see that powerful, violent nature that he would hit a baseball with. He was quite the versatile player, though, in high school because he was not only a pitcher, much like his uncle Dwight Gooden, get it kind of into the high 80s. He was also a very prolific third baseman.
Yeah.
Finished with a 500 batting average, 15 homers, and only 62 at-bats, and was Gatorade National Player of the Year in 1986.
I've heard this stat, but I couldn't confirm it. which is perfect for this podcast. But I heard a stat that he never struck out in high school. Or, I mean, in his senior year of high school.
I'd believe that. No, I mean, when you look at his MLB stats, I believe it. I would totally believe that he never struck out because his plate discipline was off the charts fantastic.
Exactly. And that led him to be fucking drafted number 1. And
he wasn't drafted number 1. He was drafted round 1.
Oh, round 1. Okay.
Yeah, and he had said previous to this, if I'm not drafted in the first round, I will go and play for University of Miami stacked program. But the Milwaukee Brewers can't resist, and at number 6 overall, they take him in the first round.
Which, it's got to be the best for players is the MLB draft, I feel like, because they can get drafted, see where they get drafted, and then go play again.
Particularly out of high school,
yep.
Especially with eligibility remaining. And when you're drafted that high, the signing bonuses are ridiculous, and you're just like, why the hell not at this point?
Exactly. So that's why I love the MLB draft. It's set up for the players.
Pretty much, yeah. And his first year in short season with Helena, he hits 365 with 71 ribbies in only 57 games. That type of run productivity is insane. And the following season, he goes to Stockton and High A and leads the league in RBIs with 103. This guy is just a run-producing magnet as far as runs scored, RBIs, and on-base percentage.
Something I thought was interesting because I feel like everybody could see his offense in this was they were slotting him at shortstop, and
which is interesting.
Even in this, the California League, he was struggling.
Yeah, I mean, as far as an infielder, Gary Sheffield is nothing to write home about. He has an arm to throw it across the diamond, but as far as fielding and throwing it accurately to first base, that's not what you're going to get.
And I just always thought it was so weird because shortstop is really the one position you don't want an error-heavy player at. So, and we're going to bring it up later, but if he's struggling at this level, why wouldn't they have already moved him?
Well, the thing is, during this era, especially for somebody like Sheffield, you've never seen a player like that before. It wasn't really until the mid to late 90s where you started seeing the Alex Rodriguez's and the Nomar Garcia Perez of these guys and Cal Ripken was really the first of everybody, of these larger, taller guys, not these slick fielding guys who hit 5 home runs a season type of players. It was kind of a transitional era, and you're just figuring, well, we put our best player at shortstop, and obviously he's cleaning up at the plate. So
it's interesting.
That's his natural at the time position, so that's where we're going to play him. And by the end of 87 in the minors, he's the Brewers' #1 prospect. And the Brewers at this time are a competitive team in the AL East.
Yeah.
They're not really breaking through, but they're finishing with above 500 records at this point. And then in 88, between El Paso and Denver, which is double and triple A, mind you, the Rockies don't have a team yet, he hits 327 with 28 homers and 118 RBIs. And at age 19, on September 3rd, 1988, he makes his major league debut for the Brewers.
Yeah, which is pretty awesome to think of how fast he goes through the system because
well shit if you can hit.
Exactly, and that's what they keep moving him up every single time. They're like, okay, keep going. And that's the other thing is he just keeps hitting with men in position, which has to be so exciting when you see a guy coming through doing that.
Yeah, you're just like, this is a ground-breaking franchise player. And 24 games in September, he hits 238 with 4 homers and got his first major league home run off of somebody we discussed in the 95 Angels podcast, at Mark Langston.
Oh, yeah.
Who was playing for the Mariners at that time. But things go down the tubes for Gary in Milwaukee.
Well, he suffers a couple of injuries.
Yes, and this is kind of a theme throughout his career as far as being injury-prone. So you want to get into that?
Yeah, so he suffers some injuries, and he essentially gets demoted to third base when Bill Spires, who we were talking about before, is probably a better shortstop.
Yeah.
Just, it obviously not a better hitter, but Gary Sheffield felt like it was race-based.
Yeah, which I'm not sure if I understand. Don't get me wrong. As far as players, Gary Sheffield is in another stratosphere as an all-around player compared to Bill Spires.
Yes.
Bill Spires, however, is reliable. You can play him at second, third, and short, as he evidenced throughout his career, and you can go, okay, if Spires is playing short, the big mistake won't be made. And I don't know how much I buy into the racism thing, but it's what Milwaukee chose to do.
Well, and I brought this up, like nobody held on to racism longer than baseball, and we really have no idea what happened in that locker room. But
Yeah.
I feel like what Milwaukee felt was, if that's the way you feel, Gary, let's keep this in the locker room and let's solve it.
He wasn't one to keep his opinions to
just,
himself.
Yeah, he just immediately goes to the media and he's like, they're being fucking racist, and that's why I got moved to third. Which, if you look at especially his like defensive stats, that was a correct move for his career.
It was, and he eventually moves positions again later.
Yep.
But in 89, 247, 5 home runs, 32 RBIs. In 1990, they brought in Don Baylor, who was a former AL MVP, future manager of the Rockies, to kind of help him with his hitting. He hit 294 with 10 homers, and then just kept shitting on the organization. In 91, he only played 50 games.
Yeah, because he got injured a bunch again.
Yeah, and granted, while he's only... Well, after 91, he's only 23 years old.
Yep.
Milwaukee's had enough of him.
Which is pretty quick.
Yeah. And basically, he receives a rebirth of sorts in 92 in spring training in arguably the only good trade outside of Kevin Brown to Florida in 1998 the Padres ever made during my childhood. March 26, 1992. He's traded for Ricky Bonas, pitcher, Jose Valentin, an infielder, outfielder, and then Matt Mieske. And I tell you what, in the old launching pad at Jack Murphy Stadium in 1992, that's where Sheffield really becomes a Major League Baseball star.
I was going to say, like, if you look at his Brewers numbers, you're like, yeah, this kid could be something. That first season at the Padres with everybody around him, like pretty much like securing his bat, it's ridiculous.
Well, in 92, what they had after, granted, I'll go into a personal aside. By this point, they had traded two of my favorite players that weren't Tony Gwynn in Roberto Alomar and John Kruk. However, through the Alomar trade, you get Tony Fernandez and power hitter Fred McGriff, who led the NL in home runs that year. You put Sheffield in front of him and you bat him between Tony Gwynn and Fred McGriff. Sweet Jesus in that pitcher or in that hitter's park.
That's what I mean. So it's they would have, or in that season, him and Fred McGriff were 1 and 2 in home runs.
Yeah,
and then you smash Tony in there, and it's just like, yeah, were
an above 500 team. They were a decent team that year. And funny story, May 12th, 1992, he actually got to face his uncle, Dwight Gooden, playing for the New York Mets.
Yeah, I thought that was cool.
But throughout the entire season, Sheffield was competing not only for the NL batting championship, which he did win with a .330 average.
Yep.
He was competing for a Triple Crown. And Triple Crown, if you're not familiar, as we talked about on the Jimmy Fox episode, go back and listen, is leading the league in batting average, home runs, and RBIs. And this season, I wanted to bring this up. His 33 homers, only 2 behind teammate Fred McGriff. And then his RBIs, which were 105, were 9 off the lead from Darren Daulton. So this is an incredible year. This is all of the potential everybody's been salivating over since he finished his high A season in Stockton back in 1988. So he's a cornerstone in San Diego, you would figure, right? As far as, he's going to be the franchise player. He's going to succeed Tony Gwynn. He was actually the first Padres player to win a batting title not named Tony Gwynn.
Yeah.
You take away Mark Loretta in, I think, 2004. Those are the only 2 people to add to the 8 that Gwynn had won by himself.
Well, I thought it was interesting because organizations like this, like the Padres, have to make these financial decisions.
Don't get into this, Chris.
That the fans have to hate. They're just like, you don't have an extra $50 million. Get an extra $50 million.
It's not even $50 million. It's goddamn market value. How dare you say something like that to a Silver Slugger and someone who made the All-Star game in San Diego that year? God damn it.
Well, this is what we see is these.
He led the NL in total bases.
These teams literally become feeder systems because they can't support 3 or 4 of these gigantic contracts.
But they're not gigantic contracts. Do you know how many hometown discounts Tony Gwynn took? And don't even get me into that Fred McGriff trade. That was for a goddamn washing machine. The equivalent of a washing machine. You can look it up. It's the equivalent of a goddamn washing machine.
So we get to the end of his Padres career. This is what I wanted to bring up was they felt like they needed to trade him.
Yeah, because the front office had no money and they didn't want to spend any money and break the hearts of small children living there in the San Diego area.
And they didn't want to lose him to free agency.
They didn't want to lose him to free agency, but what they got in return, I'm not a huge fan of. And I'm not popular among Padres fans for saying this, but by the middle of the summer, he was hitting .295 and 10 home runs. June 24th, 1993, 3 days before my 6th birthday, they traded him to the Florida Marlins for a couple of relief pitchers and Trevor Hoffman. That's what you get in return? Granted, the McGriff trade was even more horrendous, but that's all you get? A guy who can save 40 games for 10 years for a team that wins 70? Go fuck yourselves, Padres!
It's very fucking true when you look at these trades throughout, especially this era. It's almost like they really don't understand market value of their players.
No, they have no idea. They're
It's
just
so
looking
weird.
to unload them because they know if they hold on to them past a certain day, they're going to have to pay them, and the trade value will be somehow even shittier, which makes absolutely no sense.
Exactly.
But,
and then that's the other thing is I feel like the other teams know this too, and they're just like, yeah, we'll give you shit for them. It's such a horrible, fuck, man.
Well, he made the All-Star team with Florida that year because he was fucking killing it. And at the end of the year, Florida gives him a 4-year deal, which makes complete and total sense because you bring a Floridian home who wants to play in Florida, wants to be part of this team that's accumulating a shit ton of young talent that's very... They're not good, but they're on the cusp.
And they make him the highest paid third baseman in the league for at least, 5 minutes or whatever it is.
Yeah, however MLB goes.
Yeah, but that's the thing that San Diego just wouldn't do, and this is why it's going to stab Dom right in the heart.
You cheap bastards!
Because we literally see this fucking guy take this shit organization to a World Series.
Won the batting title. He won the goddamn batting title.
Oh my God, it's so...
I'm sorry, but 94 is kind of injury plagued for him, and they move him to right field, which is kind of a godsend for his career if you want to go into that.
Yes, definitely, because I felt like everybody realized he always struggled on defense. And I don't know what it was with the Marlins. I don't know if you, did they just have a better third baseman?
At that time, probably not, but they saw his athletic ability and they were like, okay, well, he has a cannon for an arm he's super athletic, and you always put your best athlete as far as throwing in the outfield, not necessarily defense. That's where the center fielder plays as far as range. But you put your best athlete as far as throwing the ball into right field. And Sheffield has that in spades. So you have a need in right field, that's where you send the guy.
And it worked out so perfectly because I feel like it really, everything kind of clicks with the Marlins like it was clicking with San Diego.
Yeah, I mean, only he's doing it on defense.
Yep.
I mean, he's not a liability at all in right field.
Exactly.
In fact, in 95,
yep.
I mean, 150 games, 295 batting average, 43 dingers, 124 RBIs, a 416 on base percentage, .585 slugging percentage, which had him over 1,000 for OPS. How the heck? And this is where I get into the on-base thing. This guy had a masterful eye at the plate, which is
one of
very
the best.
He's top 10 still in walks in MLB history. That's
for a power hitter too. Like you were saying, you will not see that nowadays. Hopefully it will kind of change, but power hitters literally like Bo Jackson is the guy I always
free
think of.
swing.
Yes.
I mean, it's either a strikeout, a home run, or
a fly out
or a line out somewhere.
But that's why Gary Sheffield was a great baseball player, not a great power hitter.
Hey, everybody. Just want to take a quick break to let you know that our Sports Experience podcast is brought to you by Engle Studio here, and they're here in Tucson for all your recording needs. And then the following season in 96, as they're putting more talent on this Marlins roster as far as developing it and signing free agents. He's an all-star, silver slugger, .319 batting average, 118 runs.
Yep.
And a lot of that reason is the walks. And I just can't stress that enough, is the walks. But he had 142 to 66 walk to strikeout ratio. That's over 2-1. That is over 2-1 for one of the most dangerous hitters in the National League. And he also puts up over 40 homers again with 42, 120 RBIs. And he led the league with a .465 on-base percentage, led the league in OPS with over 1,000, 1.090, and everything is coming together in Florida. They're set in 97. This is like basically the 5-year plan.
Yeah, it really
Entering
is.
their 5th year of existence in 1997, you're thinking a lot of good things are going to come. Unfortunately, he kind of struggles at the plate this year due to some injuries, and the injuries always kind of spring up for him. Just like not necessarily career devastating injuries, but stuff that'll put him on the 15-day DL every so often.
And it really messes with especially a hitter's rhythm, and you can tell he's not the Gary Sheffield you've seen in the past couple of years.
But the team around him is stacked.
Yes.
I mean, you have Moises Alou, Charles Johnson, Jeff Conine, Bobby Bonilla. I mean, the rest of the team around him is fantastic. Devon White in center field. I mean, this is a team which we'll go into is World Series caliber. And while his batting average dips to 250 and his homers dip to 21, he still has 121 walks.
Yep.
I mean, he's still getting on base, and they eventually go to the playoffs as the wild card because the Braves are in that midst of like something like 15 straight division titles.
Yes.
And I know we talked about it before in the Jeff Ken episode because they play the Giants in the NLDS and how wonky always those Giants and Marlins series were in 97 and 2003. And in the NLDS, he hits 556. He hits 556. Over 1 of 2 plate appearances, he gets a hit.
It's insane.
Has a homer, has an RBI, 5 walks, a .714 on base percentage. Dear Christ, slugging 1,000.
Can you even imagine being the opposition pitchers? You're just like, well, one of these next two are going to be hit.
When you slug 1,000 across the board, do you know what that means statistically? You're basically getting a single in every single at bat that you come up. That is unfucking believable.
Granted, in playoff baseball,
Granted, it's a 3-game series because the Marlins sweep them 3-0, but I don't care who the hell you are at any level of baseball. You slug 1,000 in 3 straight games, pretty goddamn incredible. But then they go to the NLCS where they have to play the Braves.
Oh, yes, yes.
And in a series where I'll say there's some questionable umpiring in Game 5. I don't know if you've ever watched this, but apparently the strike zone is the size of the Buick as far as left to right. They end up beating arguably one of the best pitching staffs of the 90s because you have John Smoltz, Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, and Denny Nagel.
Oh, yeah.
And they win 4-2. They win the series 4-2. Sheffield has a solid series, 275 average, a homer, scored 6 runs, 7 walks, and they make the World Series as a wild card. And guess what happens to Gary Sheffield? Goes off again.
Yes. So they make the World Series against the Indians.
Arguably, I would say if you ranked World Series, I would probably put that Twins-Braves one at number 1.
Yes.
From 91, we talked about in our Kirby Puckett episode. Indians-Marlins of 97 is no lower than top 5. As far as excitement, as far as duration of series, as far as just how amazing it truly was.
And I'll tell you what I found awesome about this is up until when he moves to right field, he's kind of looked at as a liability on defense.
Yeah.
In this World Series, he has the play of the series
yes,
on
he does.
defense.
Yep.
And you're just like, that's what's up.
That's where he should have been playing since the minor leagues.
Yes, because literally his arm and, like you said, his athleticism, it's just everything should be used in that, capacity as a right fielder.
Which is funny because the Padres and Brewers just never figured it out.
Nope.
I'll give San Diego a pass because Tony Gwynn is playing right field, but you couldn't have moved him to left. You couldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they end up winning this World Series in dramatic fashion. Walk-off hit by Edgar Renteria. Sheffield balls out, 292, 4 runs, 1 double, 1 homer, 5 RBIs, 8 walks. I mean, that's all you can ask out of your star player.
That's like his straight-up statistics for a series that I love. He's just like, 5 to 10 walks, 300, maybe a home run, 3-4 RBIs. You're just like, yes. I love his statistics throughout playoffs and really overall. He's one of my favorite for that.
Oh, totally. And so 98 starts, but what happens in Florida is it's a fire sale to kind of end all fire sales. Alou is gone. Starting pitcher Kevin Brown is gone to San Diego, who he leads to a pennant. I mean, Devon White goes to Arizona. I don't think he was an expansion draft. He was just a free agent. They just said, fuck it, let him walk.
Damn.
I mean, their entire roster was essentially napalmed.
Well, they were like, we just won. Let's not pay any of this contract money in the next 5 years.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. But Sheffield stays on because he's still under contract. And by May of that year, he had talked to his manager, Jim Leland, who he actually probably the only manager he seemed to have a close relationship with.
Yes.
Like before Game 7, apparently Sheffield had said, because Leland was a lifetime minor league player, he said, let's go fucking win this one for the guy that rode all those buses.
Yeah.
Because
that's awesome.
And Sheffield's in kind of a weird position because he's like, no, I'm happy playing here in Miami. I enjoy it. I don't give any sort of shit about, granted, I don't like the fact that they burn this franchise to the ground, but by that same token, I like playing for Jim Leland. And Jim Leland basically went up to him, according to Sheffield, and said, like, no, they're selling everybody off. I'm not going to be here by the end of this season. And not Miami, they're Florida still at this time.
Yep.
May 14th, 1998, he's traded to the Dodgers. And this is a very interesting and famous trade because what Florida does is trade for Mike Piazza, who spends 3 weeks with Florida, essentially, before the trade deadline. And Sheffield, who's an all-star, is in a weird spot because he doesn't want to leave Florida, and he has a no-trade clause. So the Marlins basically have to play some salary Tetris with him as well as the Dodgers to make this trade even go through. Sheffield's the last sticking point of it because he's like holding firm as the last guy going, no, this isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening in this whole shit show of a trade, Mike Piazza and Todd Zeile go to the Marlins, and it's Manuel Barrios, Charles Johnson, all-star and Gold Glove catcher for the Marlins, Bobby Bonilla, and fourth outfielder Jim Eisenreich, along with Sheffield, go to the Dodgers. And it doesn't matter much to Sheffield after all his demands are met, and knowing Leland isn't coming back, that he ends up playing in L.A. for an extended period of time.
Yeah, well, I found it interesting that, and I say this again, that clubs let these top guys go for not nothing, because, I mean, obviously Piazza was whatever, but like...
Piazza's a Hall of Famer, but they only had him for 3 weeks.
Exactly. Yeah. For not an assurance. You know what I mean? Like, it's such weird moves by ball clubs. It's almost like guys don't mean anything.
No, they don't mean shit. It's just a matter of moving the money around and whether your bookkeeper can do it correctly.
The financial Tetris that is so weird because, I mean, he's still a top player. I mean, he plays for the Dodgers for, 3.5 years? So
yeah, and he balls out. I mean, after he gets to L.A., his stats just improve. He hits 302, 22 homers, over 80 RBIs. He has 20 steals and 95 walks.
I thought the steals were interesting. It's the first time since, I think, his rookie career or something that he had 20 steals.
And then, oddly enough, down the line, he has another 20 steals. Because he's a good base runner, but he's not like someone you go, oh, this guy's going to be a speed demon on the base paths. So 99 to 2000, though, is when he really starts balling out for the Dodgers. Unfortunately, the Dodgers aren't very good during this era.
But and brought this up, they're just like burning cash on not good players.
They are like almost the Mets of this era, the Dodgers. I know after 98, after Kevin Brown balled out on the postseason for the Padres, because he was only on a 1-year deal, they traded future All-Star first baseman. But granted, they won the pennant, so I'm not mad. They traded Derek Lee. It was just a 1-for-1 deal where the Marlins were like, oh, we're shedding all this fucking payroll. Let's get something of value in return. Fuck you, Padres. But he was their only good first-round pick that signed of that era, which includes Todd Helton when he was backing up Peyton Manning at Tennessee, and Troy Glaus, future All-Star for the Angels, who didn't sign because they didn't want to give money. I'm sorry to go on that angry aside, but back to Sheffield, 99 to 2001. Two-time All-Star in those 3 years, 312 batting average, 113 homers. That's insane for your right fielder. 310 RBIs, 296 walks in 3 seasons.
Yes.
Good Lord.
Yes. And this is what I love about him is I feel like he had these stats for 20 years.
He really did.
And that's what I love about him is his plate discipline never wavered.
I hate to be repetitive, but like watching baseball now, you just don't see this garbage.
Well, I'll tell you what.
I shouldn't even call it
bring
garbage.
It up.
The play now is garbage. You don't see this magnificence in the batter's box.
We're going to bring it up in his retirement because he has some choice words. So,
but yes, absolutely. But I just want to say this: of 3 years in his prime, basically his age 31 to 32 seasons, so 30, 31, 32.
Yep.
He has over 1,000 OPS. Good God. But
can you imagine if the Dodgers knew what they were doing in that era?
I mean, they're spending money like a drunk guy on payday at a strip club at this point.
Fucking A.
I wish they were doing that now. Granted, they're in third place, I believe, but he didn't like the Dodgers organization, though, by the end of his career.
Now we're doubling back to this where everybody in the organization feels like you should be keeping shit in the clubhouse, and he just literally goes to the media and he's just like, the Dodgers are garbage. They don't know how to spend money. And you're just like, oh, this is our star.
And he was
fielder.
criticizing teammates. Yes. Like, I mean, he was Honey Badger. He didn't give a shit.
No, he just flat out went off.
And the Dodgers had enough.
Yeah.
I mean, they basically had enough by the end of the 2001 season, despite his incredible stats and productivity. That January 15th, 2002, he is traded to the Braves for all-star outfielder Brian Jordan, Odalis Perez, a pitcher, and Andrew Brown, a minor leaguer.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like we were saying, it's almost like he couldn't find teammates and managers to really get along with longer than 3 years.
Well, if you think
Florida, and that's it.
This is kind of a down era of Dodgers baseball because I feel like until 2004, they hadn't won a division title since 1995.
Oh, yeah.
So despite all the money they're spending, they're not getting anything of value. But in 2 seasons with the Braves, continues doing Gary Sheffield things.
Yes.
He was an All-Star, Silver Slugger, All-Star both years, Silver Slugger 2003, hit .319, 208 runs, 64 homers, 216 RBIs, 158 walks, OPS a 974. But much as the Braves, outside of the 95 season, him and the rest of the roster just take an absolute shit in the postseason.
Yes.
Both years they lose in 5 games. Of the division series against the Giants and Cubs. And he was 1 for 16 against the Giants and 2 for 14 against the Cubs.
And this is rare for his postseason play because he normally steps up and has a good postseason. But like you said, the Braves all throughout these 2 years were just horrible in the postseason.
Yeah, they completely tanked. And who knows what they could have done, but by that point, his contract has expired, and December 19th of 2003, he signs a 3-year, $39 million deal with the evil empire and the New York Yankees.
This one's when the Yankees are just pretty much snatching up any free agent that's out there. So I remember him playing for the Yankees in this era, especially because it was such a...
Yankees move?
Yes, it was such a Yankees move. He's just like, oh, shit, they got Gary Sheffield now.
Let's get this 36-year-old who's still knocking it out of the park at this point. And 2004, he had an incredible year. Possibly should have won the MVP. He finished second to Vladimir Guerrero.
Yeah.
All-Star, Silver Slugger, 290, 36 homers, 121 RBIs, 117 runs, 30 doubles, 92 walks, and over a 900 OPS. And still performed well in the postseason. Unfortunately, because he hit .333 with 1 homer and 5 RBIs, they are the first and only team in MLB history to lose a 3-0 postseason lead in a best-of-7 series.
Yeah, against the man we had just talked about, old Curt Schilling.
Old Curt Schilling. I wonder how he's doing now.
Yeah. I'm going to be your mayor, Curt Schilling.
Oh, yes.
But, yeah, they run into... one of the most unluckiest series, because if you think about it, the winner of that series was going to go on and win the World Series. Just those were the teams.
Exactly. 2005 does just as well as an All-Star and Silver Slugger, but 2006, that's when the injury comes. Combined, he hit .293 with 40 homers, but now he's 38. And after an ALDS exit in 2006, he's pretty much expendable by the Yankees after signing that club option.
Well, they don't want to have his huge contract for this old man, which is it's such another Yankees move where they're like,
he's 38.
We need to dump this old man on another organization, and another organization's like, all right, we'll pick him up. Fuck it.
And November of that year, he's traded to the Tigers, who had just won the AL pennant because he lost his job because he was hurt in 2006 to midseason acquisition Bobby Abreu.
Oh, yeah.
So he goes to Detroit and does a decent job in 2007, 2008. He hit 44 homers combined between the 2 years, 132 RBIs. As a DH now. I mean, in the American League, as a power hitter near your 40s, you're going to be a DH.
Yep.
And he stole 22 bases, though, in 2007, which I brought up before, which I found so interesting. And then November 8th, 2008, he was... what was I going to say? Not November 8th. In 2007, 2008, he not only hit the 249,999th home run, he hit the 250,000th home run in MLB history.
On back-to-back plate appearances.
Yes, he did.
So
Gio Gonzalez.
It's quite an iconic moment in MLB history. And that he has.
Yeah, he ended 2008, oddly enough, I'll still remember this, with 499 home runs.
And then the Tigers said, you know what, we're not going to bring you back for our DH.
No mas.
Which I felt like was kind of messed up, but as an organization, you kind of just have to do stuff like that. So that's when he goes to the Mets.
Yeah, into spring training, 2009, signs with the Mets. And then on April 17th, he hits his 500th homer.
Yep.
Which I think is pretty incredible. That's a milestone for anybody, regardless of anything. And 25th guy in MLB history to do it. And he was only the third player at the time in MLB history to hit a home run before the age of 20 and then after the age of 40.
Yep.
And he joined Ty Cobb and Rusty Staub, and I believe Alex Rodriguez was the last one to do it. But by the end of the year, he is showing his age because he's 41, 42. And then didn't play in 2010. In 2011, he retired from Major League Baseball. After an absolutely stellar career, let me just say. I mean, anybody hitting over 500 home runs with the walk numbers he had and the batting average and the World Series and everything, that was pretty fantastic because he hit 292, scored over 1,600 runs, almost 2,700 hits, 509 home runs, almost 1,700 RBIs, almost 1,500 walks, and a 393 on-base percentage. Those are Cooperstown numbers.
Oh, 100%.
But then we get into the post-career stuff. I mean, it doesn't matter that he's a 9-time All-Star, 5-time Silver Slugger, 1-time World Series, and 1-time batting champion. He has some issues. Not necessarily terrible, but stuff that could bar him from the Hall of Fame.
Which is silly when you really think about it. Yeah, I think he's a sports agent now.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, representing players. He, in the Mitchell Report and the Game of Shadows book, wrote by Mark Farranuwada and Lance Williams, there was some bookkeeping done in the old Balco case. Balco, if you're not familiar, is the Barry Bonds steroid scandal. And not only were there alleged
cycling
of his schedules, but documentation that he was using performance-enhancing drugs, which he claimed he unknowingly took, which I have no idea, but the cycling evidence is pretty damning.
Yeah, I mean, that's tough because that's just one company's records. My only thing about the steroid use in Gary Sheffield's case is his body never really changed.
No, it never did. He was always that just south of 6 feet, 190 to 210 pound guy.
So he's not these other guys in which they just become, and I love your thing where Barry Bonds was just like, you think they went hard at steroids? Wait till I go this summer. Because
that guy was a mutant.
Exactly. And that's why I feel like anything, because I read somewhere where Gary Sheffield said when he used steroids unknowingly, he was rehabbing his knee.
And a lot of people any doctor for professional athletes will give patients HGH and steroids.
And what he said was, I didn't get more power from my knee coming back. It just came back quicker, and that was over. So for me, I don't think you ever use steroids in the way that we fucking vilify these guys and should vilify them. And that's why I feel like Gary Sheffield should be in Cooperstown without a doubt.
Take away his pre-2001 stats and you can make a decent conversation.
Exactly.
I don't know if it's as strong as Clemens or Bonds, but
it's still
a conversation. Yes, exactly. Made some interesting comments regarding the Yankees in a GQ article. Said Joe Torre treated the black players differently.
Well, this is something that, and it's so hard for us on the outside, white people. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
For us on the outside to know what the clubhouse is like. So if this is true, and I'm going to get into exactly what he said because I did find this really interesting. If it's true, I feel like these old-timey baseball managers kind of might lean into it.
Yeah.
Because what he said was the black players are being treated differently, and I think I forgot who said
Kenny
it.
Lofton.
Kenny Lofton.
U of A, everybody.
Yeah.
No, he had said, they were treated differently, but it wasn't based on racism.
It was,
But I loved his comment about Derek Jeter, though, because Derek Jeter is half black, half white, and they had said, well, what about Derek Jeter? And he's like, oh, he's not all the way black.
Well, he just said he's not black enough to get the kind of racism we were getting,
Yeah.
which it's kind of a fucked up statement, but might have been true. That's the thing, is we have no idea what happened in the clubhouse, because this is something that he kind of kept reiterating.
Well, that was the HBO Real Sports, the GQ interview.
Oh,
on
okay.
The why there's less black people than
Oh, yeah.
Latinos in baseball.
And that was, he was talking shit on the Tigers on that one.
Yeah, because he was like, Latinos are supposedly easier to control because you can just send them right back across the island.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's inappropriate comments.
Very
How about that?
inappropriate comments, yeah. And then he sat out the World Baseball Classic in 2006, said, I get paid when the games are real.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah, like I get paid when I'm contractually obligated. But, yeah, Gary Sheffield, very interesting career. One of my favorite players growing up.
One last thing, I saw him recently.
Oh, please, let's get into this. Oh,
because
God,
they asked
fucking love it.
What he thought of the current state of baseball.
Yeah.
And he torched it.
Yeah.
Which this is the thing. I was reading about like what he was saying. I was just like, okay. Yeah.
Those first two comments we talked about are very subjective.
Oh, they're ridiculous.
They're stuff that you can go, well, that's just one man's opinion and may or may not be true. There are other players like a Kenny Lofton who are like, oh, no, we were treated differently, but not because we were black. You know, stuff you can have some nuance to.
Yes.
But what he said about the state of baseball today, how he doesn't watch it anymore and how it is unwatchable, were for the exact reasons I've been saying for the last 5 years.
That
as a baseball fan.
The statistical analysis essentially is killing the game.
It is, because of the shifts and not teaching guys how to hit the other way, about how guys don't take walks and are free swingers, and obsessing about these Nancy Pants, nerdy, intellectual, analytical things like launch angle off the bat. It's like, hit them where they goddamn ain't, show some plate discipline, and choke up on the goddamn bat with 2 strikes. Sheffield didn't say this. This is my own opinion, but these are things that he alludes to. And it is unwatchable. Why do you think there are so many no-hitters now? Because guys aren't up at the plate looking to put the ball in play anymore.
Well, literally, why Gary Sheffield was a great baseball player is getting sucked out of the game.
It is. No.
And that's literally like when you hear the guy who is one of the best plate disciplines of his era talk about guys nowadays just like, whatever, I'll strike out again.
But he's an analytics nerd's wet dream as far as on-base percentage, walks, RBIs, runs created, that type of shit. That's being sucked out of the game because of all these minutia little, analytical statistics that have no bearing on the game whatsoever, other than to make some Star Wars nerd masturbate with a goddamn Red Sox poster in his room.
Did you say nerds? We're going to go out here and do some nerd bashing?
Nerds!
Do some nerd bashing.
But no, God bless you, Gary Sheffield. I hope you're in the Hall of Fame. I know you got a 40%, just over 40% on the last ballot. You got 3 more chances. Put him in Cooperstown.
Hey, everybody. This is just a stock message at the end of every episode. We hope you enjoyed whatever athlete and or team that episode was about. Just want to say, give us a quick follow on all social media. We have a YouTube channel, the Sports Experience Podcast, and we're on Instagram, DiTolla Dominic, and myself, C. Quinn Comedy. So give us a follow all around. We're always recording right here at Engle Studio. Thank you all very much.